Bem, mais uma conversa aqui na nossa cobertura do Web Summit Rio 2024, no estúdio do Startups aqui do Pavilhão 3. Eu estou com o Magnus Grimeland, que é da Antler, aceleradora de Singapura, que está aqui no Brasil também. Esse papo vai ser em inglês, porque o Magnus, you can see he doesn't speak any Portuguese. Oh, you learn Portuguese yet?
Very little. Yeah.
So we're going to do this in English.
Yeah.
YouTube has the captions, so
Of course.
It's good. So, Magnus, the question that everybody's been asking, is winter over? Are we heading to summer, autumn, spring, whatever?
Well, I think winter can be defined in many ways, right? And if you look historically, the best time to start companies from scratch has always been when the fundraising environments are a little bit more challenging, right? So if you look at 2001, 2002, 2008, 2009, some of the best companies in the world was built. Actually, 30% of Fortune 500 companies were built during a downturn.
Really?
Which only represent 10% of the time. So it's been an amazing time to build companies in 2022, 2023, 2024. And I would say as Antler, we're in the business of backing founders from day zero. So in terms of what we have been doing, we actually increased our investment pace in 2022 and in 2023 because we believe really great companies are being built in those times.
Wow.
Now, if you think about your question in general, what's happening more in the later stage space or seed, Series A, B, C, obviously there's been a reduction in the amount of transactions since 2021. And that is increasing again now, right? We made, we worked with a lot of great founders in New York. End of last year, we made about 8 investments in New York in January.
Okay.
7 of them have already raised their next round by mid-March. So in 2 months, 7 companies went from doing their very first round to their second round. So
wow.
the US, it's
less than a year?
Yeah. So obviously part of that is it's great companies, and great companies always raise capital. But part of it is also that the fundraising markets are coming back in the US, and that tends to then bifurcate across the rest of the world, right? So I'm pretty sure you'll see the same thing happening here soon. We also see in our
we will roll out, right?
Yeah.
If it's picking up in the US, you will
for sure
come down.
For sure, definitely. And you already see it, right? We have a number of companies in our portfolio. We backed 22 companies here in Brazil. A number of them are now raising capital, and it's not only Brazilians who are investing, but also foreign VCs, investing into Antler companies.
What do you hear from international investors about Brazil, emerging markets? What do you hear now? What they're saying?
Well, so there's a long-term trend and there's a macroeconomic trend, right? So obviously, whenever there's macroeconomic unsafety, then people tend to concentrate their capital in the US and bigger markets, which always happens. I think from an investment perspective, it's probably not the greatest idea because right now there's tremendous opportunities in a lot of markets all across the globe, but so much capital is concentrated in the US. So that tends to happen, even if I think it's not the right thing. So from a shorter perspective, obviously that's been the case, but that will come back again now as we see more and more technology investments happening. So that's one. If you look at the long-term trends, I think the ecosystem here is getting more and more attractive every year, right? If you think about where innovation and venture will be in Brazil 10 years from now versus today, for sure it will be multiples bigger, right? It should be probably 10x as big. Because while it's already a very sizable ecosystem, the potential and the share of the economy versus some more advanced ecosystems is still a small proportion. And you have this tremendous access to incredible people here. And you're in one of the few countries in the world where you can actually build billion-dollar businesses within one market, right? It's only really, you can do it in Brazil, you can do it in the US, you can do it in India, you can do it in China, you can do it in Japan, you can do it in a few markets, but it's not that many countries in the world where you can build for the world, and you can build for Brazil, and you can build billion-dollar businesses within one market. So people are very excited about the opportunity.
But as an international investor, looking at Brazil, does it make sense? Because we have FX, we have political interference, we have economic downturns and everything. Isn't it better just to invest in the US and you have your capital more you make money in a less worrisome way. I mean, down here, and the returns are not going to be as big as you get in the US or in Europe, right? I mean, does it make sense to invest in Brazil?
So I mean, we operate all across the world, right? We're in Africa, we're in Asia, we're here, we're in Europe, we're in the Middle East, we're also in the US. And obviously the US is a big opportunity. You can find exceptional founders there who are building great companies, so you can back them and then building great companies. But if you look at how the world is developing, innovation is becoming more decentralized, right? So perhaps 20 years ago, if you're a great founder, you should go to the Valley and build a business. Now, if you're a great founder, you can really build it out of anywhere, right? Like, you have access to talent there at a cost you don't have in Silicon Valley. There's amazing engineers coming out of the best universities there. You have amazing AI talent, and you now have access to capital you haven't had before. On top of that, you can service the world in a way that you weren't able to 10 to 20 years ago, right? You know, it took the airline industry, you know, everyone has been flying at one point in time. It took the airline industry 68 years to get 50 million customers. It took Pokemon Go 14 days to get 50 million customers.
Wow.
So if you find product market fit, whether in Japan or whether you're in Brazil, you can service the world rather rapidly. And you see that happening, right? Like Spotify took on Apple on music, which was their core product and the biggest and most successful company in the world, and they won. Atlassian out of Sydney took on Microsoft and productivity software, and they won, right? So you can take on the biggest companies in the world out of anywhere. And I think the opportunity here in Brazil is tremendous. And if you look at the growth of the Silicon Valley tech ecosystem, right, it's been growing about 40% per year the last decade. The rest of the world has been growing 35% per year.
Oh, so it's
decade.
Head to head.
Like, if you look at Brazil's stats, it's obviously the last couple of years, it goes a little bit in waves, but it's almost like a 50% CAGR per year in terms of value creation growth, right? So if you look at that from an investor mindset, it's probably one of the biggest opportunities in the world.
You said good projects or good companies always raise money. What is a good company? What makes a good company?
Well, so for us, we have a very specific investment thesis, right? Which is finding incredible people and then backing them from day zero. So we try to just look at the quality of the team and the quality of the founders, and we want to be the first money in. Then we have later stage capital where we can back them in subsequent rounds. So we can invest up to Series C. So we can put up to $20 million into a company through 5 rounds, alongside other great VCs. So we always like to introduce our portfolio companies to VCs globally and VCs here in Brazil as they're raising their subsequent rounds. So that's what we do. So for us, it's really about the quality of the founder, quality of the team. We don't think we can predict the future, but we think we can find people who are building the future.
Good. And what about Brazil? I mean, especially you said 22 companies invested down here.
Yeah.
How they relate to companies worldwide? What are your hopes on those companies?
So I mean, Brazil has always been special to me. My mother was actually born in São Paulo.
Oh, really?
So my great-grandfather moved here in the 20s. So on my mother's side, even if I'm Norwegian, on my mother's side, actually, for 60 years, the family was here.
Here in Brazil.
So we have lots of family here, connections and friends. We always wanted to come here with Antler. And on top of that, the ecosystem itself obviously has tremendous opportunities I spoke about earlier. So what our portfolio has been doing here is quite a lot of diversity in what they're building. So we have deep tech companies. We have a really interesting company which works on synthesizing proteins for milk production.
Wow.
We have a great company which is utilizing seeds from the Amazon forest to build artificial leather. So those plants are used for reforestation projects. So not only will you plant more forest in places where you lost forest, but you can also use the seeds to make leather to replace normal leather, which is also obviously polluting. So it's a great product. Both of them can go global. And then we have the rest of the portfolio is kind of widely split between B2B and B2C. Obviously, a lot of AI-enabled companies these days in the B2B space, in the B2C space. It's everything from direct-to-consumer, more tech-enabled stuff to products where technology is the core part of the product.
For new founders or whoever is thinking about creating a company, or whoever is already running a company, or maybe want to pivot, where should they focus?
So I think
AI.
I think a founder should always iterate their business model. And I think when it comes to AI today, to talk about AI, I think you can broadly put it in 3 categories. Either you're building infrastructure.
Okay.
If you're building infrastructure, you need to be the founders, or someone in the founder team needs to be very, very deep into AI, because you're literally building the infrastructure that everyone else will build on. That's where you're going to see the next trillion-dollar companies. Then you have the application layer, which is building on top of the infrastructure. So building, for example, on top of OpenAI. And there you have tremendous opportunities. You'll see hundreds, if not thousands, of billion-dollar plus companies being built there. And I think most of B2B SaaS will be disrupted by AI unless they implement it themselves. I think the third category is probably interesting for everyone, which is any startup today should be AI enabled, right? So you should.
But should you put it in your PowerPoint or in your presentation, or?
Well, I mean, you should talk about it like that, right? So your product might have nothing to do about AI, but parts of your business is AI enabled. For example, let's say your coding or your product or your customer service or your legal or your marketing, which allows you to draw out efficiencies and make you able to beat the competition or solve the problem you're trying to solve, right? So I think everyone should be in that category 3. There is a category 4, which is people who just add AI to their pitch deck, which you probably should avoid as an investor.
Should. Good. Thank you, Magnus.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Continue acompanhando, então, a cobertura dos startups aqui no Web Summit Rio 2024, aqui no YouTube e também nos nossos canais, nas redes sociais, na newsletter e no nosso site. Até mais!